Good morning, everyone. I've got Jevon Wooden with me here today from the Bright Mind Consulting Group. So they do a lot of development, and we're going to go more into detail about that. But he's come all the way to tell us a bit about his story, as we usually go into. And he's had a podcast in the past, and I'm very excited to have someone on my podcast who kind of knows the podcasting world as well, because it's a fun place, and it's fun to have someone who's happy and comfortable to share their story and what they've gone through. So we'll go a bit into that. Any advice for entrepreneurs who are looking to get into this world that he's in? And then, as usual, question for me at the end. We'll see what gets brought in. Always fun. So Jevon, take it away. Tell us a bit about your business and what you've created.
Yeah, hey Megan. First and foremost, thank you for having me on your podcast. I appreciate you sharing space with me. So, Bright Mind Consulting Group, you mentioned development. It's customized training and development. So, whether that be coaching, one-on-one or small group coaching, whether it be workshop facilitation, we do a lot of keynote engagements, and then we also have a component of what we call cultural transformation consulting. So that's everything from leadership, looking at how they're leading and how they can be more effective, all the way up to really reorganizing how things are done and how day-to-day operations are performed. Just in everything we do is from the foundation of emotional intelligence. So we typically start with an assessment, whether that be a DISC or emotional intelligence quotient, Hogan, any of those, right? So we can get an idea and a picture, and we add the customized part because no two organizations or leaders are alike. So we have to make sure that the solution we come up with fits the values and the goals of that org and that person.
I love that a lot. What sort of organizations have you been working with? Do you have kind of a niche or it's more of a general?
Yeah, so we've worked with all types of industries. We've done construction, we've done oil and gas, we've done supply chain, logistics, technology, hospitality, healthcare. You name it, we've probably done something in that industry.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you're in the medium to large is your ideal client.
It depends. So we typically actually work with like smaller, and we do it by personnel. So we've worked with individual entrepreneurs just to get that growth startup phase going on, all the way up to 15,000 plus employee organizations. So it really, again, is customized to the needs. Who we actually market to would be the small to medium sized businesses. So typically like 50 to about 500 employees, but we've served all types of arenas.
Love that so much. And what was your process to get there? That is no small feat to have created a business that can do so much.
Yeah, failing forward, Megan. That's the process. Failing forward. It has really taken a lot of trial and error to get here. I did not jump into this just because I was like, oh, great, I have this great network. I'm going to start reaching out, letting people know. I had to build this thing from the ground up. And the process looked like I started it in Afghanistan in 2017. I was on the deployment and I knew like my body, my mind, my heart just wasn't in it anymore. And I had to do something. Technology is my background, cybersecurity specifically. I just got tired of protecting ones and zeros and data. I just didn't see that was making an impact from me personally. So I started this company and I started coaching veterans and other soldiers initially. And I actually focused on minority veterans. So it was very niche. But what I realized was I wanted to focus on Black men who look like me. Didn't work the way I wanted it to work. And what happened was that made me evolve into what you see today, where I'm actually focused on leaders and entrepreneurs specifically. And how I built this business was a lot of relationships. It's really about that one-on-one conversation like we're having today, speaking engagements, leveraging OPP, which I talk about in my book, From Functional to Phenomenal. OPP is other people's platforms, right? Doing a lot of podcasting, speaking, anything where I can get that one-to-many opportunity. And we can get more into it if you like.
Yeah, no, I love it. And also that transition. Like I know you had the moment of this is the niche, this is what I'm really excited to help. And then something didn't work there and you shifted. Tell us a bit about that for a sec.
I mean, I've pivoted a few times, and that's one of the things I want the listeners to understand. Like, don't get so tied to an idea that you're not willing to see the clear vision that you need to pivot or you need to do something a little bit differently. So I saw those signs clear as day. When I first started off, I was, trying to run ads. I was trying to build fast, trying to scale quickly, and it did not work that way. So I had to switch to scaling intentionally. And how that looked was started off with that one niche, completely abandoned that, completely changed my offerings, right, to more align with like that corporate entrepreneurial space. So here we are today. So everything I do now is speaking to one specific avatar, one specific leader that I have in mind. That leader who looks confident from the external standpoint, look like they have it all together, but they still need someone to support them. They still need someone to hold them accountable, someone to bounce ideas off of, someone they can kind of let their guard down a little bit. That's who I'm talking to today.
And I mean, my business is Support to Thrive. So like what you just described, I love also the switch between those people that are confident they got it together and you're like, and they need someone to support them still. They need that person that's on their level to bounce ideas off of. Um,
100%.
yeah, that's powerful. That is
Yeah,
crazy.
I just feel like success is, a lot, they say it's lonely at the top and all these sayings about how it's just you. And it should not be just you when you're on a success journey. Success is not a finite resource. It is infinite. And if we really come at it from a place of that, we will no longer start looking at everybody as competition. We will start collaborating with one another to help amplify our impact. I mean, it's so interesting to me because you see the Samsungs and the Apples collaborating on things. But for some reason, when we're not making billions of dollars, we lose that idea that we can all come together and win together. So that's what I want the listeners to really understand is like, hey, find the people. I don't care if they have the exact same title, exact same function as you. You probably implement it a little bit differently. Talk to them and see how y'all can come together and amplify that impact because that's what's really going to make the difference for you.
And who have you been doing that with along your journey? Who are some of your kind of mentor and teammate people?
Oh, I do it with a lot of other coaches. Like if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I'll have other leadership coaches, other speakers, HR consultants, anybody who's like either in my space or supplemental to my space. I want to have a conversation with them because one is if you're a small business owner, a lot of these larger contracts and companies, they're not just going to want it just to be you. So they're going to be like, all right, how else are you going to support us? If you get hit by a bus today, who's taking over? So I like to bring my peoples in that I've developed that relationship in. I have a roster, right? Where I'm like, okay, let's bring this person in. They have a different expertise. They spin it a little differently, have a different framework, etc. And I'll bring them in and we'll come in as a conglomerate, so to speak, and just work together. And I feel like that's really what's helped to grow the business to where it is today is that change in mindset to realize success does not have to be a lonely journey. I should be bringing in other people who are looking to have success too, so we can help one another grow.
And how did you find them exactly? Was it just you kind of got into the space and then they started coming, or was it more intentional?
Well, it's more intentional. One is LinkedIn is my platform. I mentioned it just a few seconds ago. LinkedIn is where I find a lot of folks. So I'll intentionally look like if I'm like, I want to talk to some business coaches. I'll search business coach, right? If I'm in Houston, so I'll search on Google like, hey, top business coaches in Houston, and I'll reach out to them like, hey, I'm thinking about doing an event. We should all get together and do an event together, right? So that's how I find it, and then I'll go to some networking spaces. I make sure I put everybody in my CRM. So I'm tracking how I met them, when I met them, even in my Apple Notes, right? When I set up a contact, I'll put it in the Apple Notes, like who they were and how they met. So no matter what the breakout in time was, if it was a year or 2 weeks, I can say, hey, remember we met here? I wanted to set up a call with you, so I'm familiar with them and they know I'm not just some random person. So again, it's all about relationships and being intentional in those relationships.
I think that's such a powerful message is you're building your whole brand and everything on relationships. And it's not just necessarily relationships that you can have as clients, it's relationships that support everyone as a whole.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to stop looking at it as client or bust because that's what's breaking a lot of businesses, client or bust. You will be surprised how many people that you just have a conversation with will have you top of mind because you said something that stuck with them. And a year later, they'll introduce you to a referral and be like, hey, you know what? I thought about the fact that you do this thing and I was just speaking to this person. And of course, naturally, I wanted to introduce you. That's happened to me several times, not because I was talking to them and looked at them as a client, but because I looked at them as a person and I wanted to know what they cared about, see if I can help them. I offer a lot of value right? Not looking for anything. And I feel like that's really the way to make a relationship mutually beneficial. Reach your hand out not to see what you can take, but what you can give, and your whole world will shift.
I like that. And when businesses approach you, what is that conversation with them? If they're like, "I need help," what's your process when they get there?
Yeah. First and foremost, identify what they need help with, right? Because oftentimes businesses or people, they come in thinking that it's one thing when it's something completely different. That's the root cause of that thing. So that's the first thing. Get clarity on the problem. Two, how does the business problem impact the person? So I really want to understand what is causing for them, because oftentimes we think it's just a business issue, but it's impacting us on a deeper level. And once you can get that, you can tie whatever your solution is to that person, because they're the decision maker. So they can be like, oh yeah, I need that. So that's the second thing. The third thing is I want to understand what success looks like for them. So we know the problem. We know how it's impacting them on a personal level. Now, if we solve this thing, what's that look like? Like, what is success? Let's get really clear on that. Not surface level, not, oh, the problem's gone, but hey, this is what I will be doing. This is what we can work on. This is, if we resolve this thing, we'll make this much money, right? I want to really get something that they care about tied to that success. And then the fourth thing is this the person that has the budget, right? What is their budget? What are they willing to invest in this? How long do they think they would need, right? And I'm not going to give them a price right then and there. I'm going to co-create my proposal with them, because I don't want to do it in a vacuum. And then I want to know what's the next steps. If I create this proposal and send it to you, what happens next? Are you the person that signs it? Do we need to have someone else on this call, which I want to find out before if I can? Or are we going to just get it going right away? Because that's important. A lot of times what happens is we do all this work and we go ahead and create the proposal, then it ghosts. Right. So I want to ask them, like, after this, after I do this thing, what is the next step? And they're going to tell you typically like, oh, I got to talk to this person, or I got to do this. Well, if you got to talk to this, I'm going to hold off on creating this proposal. Let's bring that person to another call and let's get it going, because that proposal is going to be wasted away. If
I think that's so important. I know, like in my line of work, it's sometimes the follow up where you lose people,
Mhm.
and getting that key question of who are the decision makers who should actually be on this call. Like, what are the things that are actually the holdbacks to making this happen, and
Yeah,
getting
and
really clear on the process.
absolutely. And another thing you want to do is, if there is another step that you need to take after that call, is get it scheduled. Right. So you say, oh, you said you had another person. Let's throw something on the calendar now. We can always change it. Send me that person's email, let me know when they work, and then I can change and adjust it as needed. But if you don't get it on the calendar, you might never hear from that person again. So you want to make sure you already book that next meeting if possible. If not, ask them, okay, when should I follow up?
Yeah, exactly. And for your process in the words, they're escaping me. But when someone comes to you and they have a vision that is really far away, how do you break down the steps to get them there?
And when you say really far away, in what sense? Is it like it's not feasible, or is it like it's gonna be multi-year?
I guess kind of I'm thinking more in the beginner person who has a vision but they don't know how to get there. So whether it's you think it's really far away or they think it's really far away, they're like, I have this idea. It's more that like dream, that idea, and getting from point A to point B, they don't know the process or how to achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, that's coaching. It sounds like coaching right there. That's when we know, like, okay, here's the coaching plan. You want to get here, you want to get here. So that's when we're like, okay, here's how I can see it based on what I hear. This will take 6 months, or this will take 3 months, and here's the phases that we need to work on. I'm not going to give them solution on the call. Right, because then they're going to think they have enough information to go ahead and solve it themselves. But I'm saying, here's what it would look like if we work together. You said you wanted this, you said you wanted this, you said you wanted this. So here's what we will focus on. We'll focus on messaging. We'll focus on optimization of your systems. We'll focus on partnerships and networking, whatever it is. And then we'll create that plan. And then I'll say again, that proposal comes in. Like, what's next after this? If I create this, you already know what we're going to be working on. What does it look like? So that's the same, that process comes into play again.
And what are some of your goals and visions? Because you're at a certain point now in your business. Where are you wanting to take it?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it as I want to touch millions. I want to impact millions of people, whether they become my direct clients or they're just hearing some of my messaging. I just want to help millions of people go ahead and reach what success looks like for them and define that success, because a lot of us are seeing other people's depiction of what success is and we're holding on to that. I want people to break free from that type of ideation and that type of mindset and just realize like, hey, let me personalize and internalize. Let me sit down and introspect a little bit to identify my values and what really matters for me and what the indelible mark I want to leave on this earth is. And I feel like that's where we start. And that's when we start having some fun. So that's why I write all the books. That's why I do all the speaking, the podcast, and the coaching, the consulting. All of that is tied to that mission and that vision.
What are some of these visions that business owners have?
I mean, one, for a lot of business owners, right? The smaller business owners, they are really just looking to get out of living paycheck to paycheck still. A lot of business owners just work to pay bills. They're doing the same thing they would as if they were in a 9 to 5. So what I want them to do is get fiscally stable, be able to have that cushion where if they don't get another client for 2 years, they'll be okay. Right. But now they can bring and start hiring other people so they can work on the business, not in the business, as we know that saying, and just create an established legacy, whatever that looks like for them. And I feel like time is the one resources we can't get back. So if we can make it so that they have freed up their time to do what matters most to them, then we just won.
Very exciting. Sometimes it's that vision. It's the long-term vision that keeps us going.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I feel like if you don't have a strong why, you will fizzle out really quickly. Like I told you earlier, I had to pivot a lot of times. There are times when I looked at my account, I'm like, man, I just drained my savings. What do I do now? Wow, I only have like 2 months. So I know that struggle. I've been there and it does not feel good. So I want to kind of help other people get out of that cycle of, oh, I'm high, I'm doing great. Oh, shoot, I am about to fizzle out, I'm about to go bankrupt, right? That is no way to live. So we got to get out of that cycle.
And how did you keep yourself going in those moments? Like what was your overarching vision that kept
I have a deep rooted belief that once you start walking in your purpose, the path is just naturally going to become difficult. It doesn't have to be strenuous, but it's going to be difficult. Right. And it's going to be difficult because you care so much about the outcome and the success that sometimes you can't enjoy the journey. So what I've had to do is take a step back, like, hey, you don't control the outcome. Embrace what's happening along the way. Stop trying to move so fast. Find out what's the one next best step that you can take and take it. And that's what I have to do often. I have to start looking at that one foot in front of the other instead of trying to look all the way down the road and just take that next best step. Slow myself down because I'm a very excited person and I'm a very ambitious person. So I have to really filter and I have to have people around me, including my wife, that say, hey, relax. Like, I know you want to do this thing, but you don't have to do it right now, right? Find out what you can do, even if it's just one thing in that day that moves me a bit closer to those goals. Take that next best action, and then I can move from there.
that? I like that a lot. And that kind of goes into advice that you'd have for entrepreneurs. Like, what are some of the biggest, you've already said some, but what are some of the biggest key things that you would say to someone who's not even, like, doesn't have any employees, isn't starting, like, is in their 9 to 5, hasn't started a business yet? What would some of your key things for them be?
Yeah, first off, if you have a 9 to 5, hold on to it as long as you can. Right. So that's the first thing. I know people are like entrepreneurship is cool. Don't buy into that. Right. Get stable. Make sure you have a proof of concept for whatever your business is, and move as intentionally as possible in the entrepreneurial space. The second thing is, I would say to get really clear on your messaging. A lot of entrepreneurs say when I talk to them, they're like, I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this. I'm like, find out really what you want your revenue generating activity to be. Get known for that revenue generating activity. You don't have to have all of your products and services figured out from the outset. Get really good at that one thing, right? For mine was coaching initially. I started coaching and I really got really good at coaching. I invested in being a better coach. Then I added the speaking, right? So get really good at that thing that you want to be known for. Understand the messaging around that thing. What is the solutions? What are the problems that your clients or your target audience is experiencing? And how are they describing those things? That's what you need to really get laser focused on, whether you're a product or service based business. The third thing I would say is be intentional with your time. A lot of us are like, procrastinators. We're like, oh, I can do that later. Or we get the squirrel and we start doing stuff that had no business in our space at this time. So really start blocking out your time and being focused on what you need to do. If it's prospecting, put it in your calendar. I'm a prospect for 30 minutes. I'm a prospect for an hour. If it's writing, creating content, block that out too. Because what happens is if you don't see it, you don't have the notifications, you don't have the reminders, then you just start doing things reactively instead of proactively, and you become unfocused. So don't get caught up in the feel goods, checking the boxes, get caught up in intentionality.
And how do you go about the after work? So if you're in your 9 to 5, what would be some of the key things starting out to be doing in the after work time periods?
Yeah, I mean, if you end the 9 to 5, think about the relationships first, right? You have to look at the relationship. What spaces do you need to? Is there a networking event in your area that you can jump on? Even a virtual networking. Virtual is cool because you can literally see who's doing what and message them like, hey, I would love to connect. One of the first things I do, I pick the platform of choice, mine, LinkedIn. I'm gonna paste my LinkedIn. Hey, I would love to connect with you all and just put it in the chat so everybody can start connecting. That sparks that group of people doing that. And you can do that same thing in person. Find that one person who seems cool, ask them, hey, what brings you to the event this evening if you're not comfortable networking? That usually breaks the ice and they're going to tell you. And then next thing you know, you're off to the races. So networking, telling people who are already in your network what you're doing, what you're working on, and who they can help you connect with is huge. Oftentimes we forget about the contact list we have in our phone. Use it. Use that thing, right? Don't be ashamed. Don't be shy. Don't be, if somebody says whatever they say, pay no attention to it. No, and the language of fear coming from other people cannot stop you from your dream. You have to move forward, and that's why that why is so.
And you've worked with a lot of different industries. If someone was looking to escape 9 to 5, what would be some of the things that you were like, this could be a good place to start?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on, look at your skill set, like do an inventory of the skills you have and find out what aligns with that. Like, what is the impact? Again, what is the impact you're looking to make on this world and how? What are you really passionate about? There's an exercise called finding your ikigai, and it looks at like, what are people willing to pay for? What does the world need? What do you enjoy? And once you identify those things, there's some questions underneath it, then you can kind of say, okay, let me do this. And you can use AI to help you, right? Hey, here's what I'm enjoying. Here's what I think the world would be willing to pay for. Here's how I'm thinking about implementing it. What are my ideas and possibilities for a business? And they'll spit out a whole list, brainstorm this for me. See if any of those resonate with you and keep doing it. Again, we have tools at our disposal that really cuts the time of something that took hours into seconds. So use them.
That's an interesting one, bringing the AI aspect in. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, I've heard people doing whole business plans and like, this is where I want to be. How do I get to point A to point B in X amount of time? And they give you like literally a day to day list of what you should be doing each day to get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the skills that we all need is prompt engineering. Being able to type what we need to type to get the best feedback from that AI tool. It's really augmenting us. It's making us so much better, so much more efficient. So we have to use it, just like the search engine when Google and all that stuff came about. Everybody was like, "Oh, cool! We're going to lose whatever the case may be." We didn't lose anything; we gained it because now we have all the information right at our fingertips. So we need to stop making excuses and start doing.
Something just came to me. You mentioned OPP, so other people's platforms, I believe is what that stood for,
Yes.
instead of Ontario Provincial Police, which is what it is for me. um, can you tell me a bit about that very briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. OPP is the concept of, instead of creating your own space for doing something to get in front of your target audience, you see who already has it and you leverage that. So, for example, podcasting. Podcasting is another person's platform, right? We're coming in, we both need one another. Both of us are looking to get content out in some way, shape, or form. So why not leverage that? And then once you do the podcast, you repurpose it. Not only are you helping the podcast host, you're helping yourself because you're touching their audience and they're seeing you as a thought leader. And that saves you time from having to edit and produce your own, right? The second thing is speaking. I mentioned I do a lot of speaking. So for me, speaking is a way to drive additional business while making additional revenue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the associations, the companies who have events instead of running my own. And I'm going to say, hey, I saw that you're looking for a speaker or a presenter. Here's my topics. And then, so there's a number of different ways. Social media is OPP. So if I know that my clientele is on a certain platform, I'm going to become a thought leader on that platform. I'm going to become a content creator on that platform in my own way. Right. So you're just looking at taking what's pre-existing and then using that as a springboard for you.
That is very helpful. And I know for me, podcast wise, there's like Podmatch, there's some of those platforms. Other than LinkedIn, do you have other like easy to get into networking platforms?
Yeah. So if you're a small business, there's a platform called Alignable. So
Mm.
you can use that. There's Verizon. If you're stateside, I don't know if they have Canada yet, but if you're stateside, Verizon has a program called Small Business Digital Ready, and there's about 400,000 plus other people in there that you can connect with. So go ahead and look at that. Verizon Small Business Digital Ready. It's free to register, and that could be another opportunity for you. And then also just look at your chambers of commerce. Chambers of commerce are a great networking platform. Everything doesn't have to be online. I personally enjoy in person, but find out what works for you. Start small, but then challenge yourself to start stepping out and make your comfort zone a little bit bigger.
I appreciate that. And even speaking engagements as well, like just going to, oh, what's it called? Toastmasters?
Toastmasters. Yes.
Yeah,
Toastmasters is a great place to start. No, National Speakers Association is another.
good to know. Amazing tips. Do you have a question for me today?
A question for you. Yes. What got you on this journey of wanting to pour into others so deeply?
Well, I mean, there's like what got me into business, and then the wanting to pour into others probably started more when I was 14 and started going to Honduras and construction projects. And I got hooked. I went there as the little girl being like, I'm going to help these poor people. And then came out of it with they have so much knowledge and I'm learning so much. And I just want to go and learn. And by doing that and hearing their stories and being part of their stories, when end of high school came and it was like, what are you going to do with your life? All I wanted to do was travel more and see those stories and see the different ways of life and see the different possibilities of what was out there and what people were doing in the world. And I think for me, there's the Support to Thrive, the name of my business. It's all about that. How do I support people to be able to do what they do so well, but do it better and do it to have more of an impact and to do it so it's more streamlined and they have more free time? And how do we connect them with the resources right away so they don't have to spend time using something that isn't working and basically put their mental energy to that, whereas they could be putting it towards something else. So I think for me the passion definitely came from being around also just other people that were really passionate and turned on about what they were doing. I had a lot of really cool people that I got to go be a part of their worlds that were doing things that lit them up, and they weren't necessarily doing the 9 to 5, and they weren't like going and just drudging away at life. They were really doing things that lit them up in the world. I think that's what I want to help create. If people don't have that, I want to help support them to have that ease and fun and freedom in their life.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for asking.
Absolutely.
And Jevon, how do people find you in the world?
Yeah, if you want to connect with me, first and foremost, you can go to my website, jevonwooden.com. That's JEV as in Victor, ONWOODEN.com. Or you could connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search my name. You'll see a light bulb next to it. Connect with me. And let me know you heard me on Support to Thrive.
That's it. That is exactly it. Well, do you have any last words before we sign off for today?
Yeah, I would just say thank you. Thank you for creating this space. Thank you for really pouring into others authentically. Thank you for showing up so genuinely and with love and care.
Thank you very much. Right back at you.
Thank you.